Hello, and welcome back to the Practice Squad. I'm one of the co-hosts, Jordan LaRoche. To my left here is Henry Stanage, who I'll bring up in a few seconds. We're down here at the locker room at the Bottom Line. The Bottom Line is a great sports bar, great wings, great food, good service, a prime location just next to the Hockey Hall of Fame, just down the road from Union Station. Big hockey bar, sold out on Leafs nights. So if you're in the area, feel free to come by and check it out. We have a great studio down here. It's a great space. But just for the layout for this episode, we're going to start off with some winners and losers from the last week of preseason. Week 1 is here, almost here. Before we get into some of the bets for the opening game, and as we kind of get into cut day, and then the third episode of Hard Knocks. But I'm going to bring up my co-host here, Henry. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. And yeah, it's really nice to be at the final weekend of August.
Yeah.
Summer's wrapping up, and I'm so excited for next Thursday.
Yeah, and even though the Hard Knocks season, our last episode is only the second game of preseason, but it's kind of getting to that time of the year now where we're looking towards the NFL season. It's just this dull week of just nothingness, I guess, as we get into week 1.
Yeah, I'll still take it over where we were like a month ago when there was only baseball on.
Yeah, fair enough.
I've got some Prem action I can keep up with, and it's a good time in the sports calendar.
Yeah, exactly. And hockey started up as well, but as we start off the show here, we want to go straight into our winners and losers from last week of preseason. Do you want to start this one off?
Yeah, and my first loser, and it gets hard at this point in the preseason, right? Because you're seeing less. And so you just want teams to look like they are organized and on top of their stuff. And for so long, no team was more on top of their stuff than the New England Patriots. And that's just not the case this offseason. For years, they've had terrible drafts, and you saw it at the end of the Tom Brady era when they were drafting guys in the first, second round that weren't able to come in and contribute. And then by Brady's last season, they just didn't have the supporting cast around him, and that's continued. I saw yesterday they have now cut both of their third-round picks from 2020, I believe, who were both tight ends. Their draft this year was heavily criticized. Bill Belichick still hasn't named an offensive coordinator, nor does he have a natural offensive coordinator on the staff. It looks like it's between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, who are known for that. And it's just looks like a mess. As you know, a fan of a team, the AFC East, I'm delighted by what I'm seeing from the Patriots. And for a team with a second-year quarterback, I don't think this past month could have been any more alarming.
Yeah, and I mean, so the Patriots were going to be one of my losers too. And I mean, if you look at Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, well, obviously losing Josh McDaniels as your offensive coordinator is going to hurt your offense. But Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, he's really been a special teams guy. He was a linebackers coach for a little bit. I think he had 1 year as a receivers coach in the NFL. But Matt Patricia as well, mainly works with the O-line. He's done some D-line work as well. So these are the guys that are looking to groom this Mac Jones, your first-round pick quarterback. And I don't know if I really trust two defensive guys or a special teams guy and really kind of grooming it to be the next best thing.
Yeah. And their second-round pick this year, Tyquan Thornton's already got hurt, and he is super fast and at least scored a touchdown in the first preseason game. And it's just been a really weird offseason for the Pats.
Yeah, and that last game up against the Raiders backups, I mean, Mac Jones didn't look great. He had a pretty bad interception in that game as well. So it's just not looking good for the Patriots for the first time in as long as I can remember. Just
thinking about this, when Belichick and Brady had the breakup, Brady won the first year, obviously. Belichick missed the playoffs. Brady won the Super Bowl. And I think an underrated breakup is Josh McDaniels leaving for the second time. And it's going to be really interesting to compare how the Raiders do versus the Patriots this year, because I think he was regarded as probably the best coordinator in the league.
I think so, yeah. But yeah, I think Oakland's got a steal there with Josh McDaniels, and Vegas. And I'm really excited to see what they do. But I am going to change the tone here a little bit, because that was a little bit of a down segment. I'm going to go to a winner here.
Not for a Jets fan.
With Baker Mayfield. The quarterback competition in Carolina has been totally finished now. Sam Darnold left with an ankle injury. I believe it was on his own touchdown run as well, which a little salt to the wound there for him. But Baker looked good in that game, threw for 2 touchdowns, 89 yards, 9 for 15, over 100 rating. And with Baker Mayfield, he just always kind of looks like he's had he throws a very beautiful ball. It's you can tell he has some zip to it, more so than a lot of quarterbacks I see. So for Carolina, you're getting on to the season with the right foot. You got a starting quarterback who's going to be confident going to week 1. And for Baker, he's never really lacked that.
Yeah, and I remember when the Panthers started 2-0 last year, and I was looking at their team going, okay, they've got a really good defense. They've got 2 decent wideouts, and DJ Moore, who could be really good. Robbie Anderson, at least he's capable of breaking one at any moment.
Yeah.
And when they were 2-0 last year, when the Panthers kind of have a nice, well-rounded team, I didn't even mention Christian McCaffrey there.
Yep.
And then this year in the draft, they take the most highly rated offensive lineman, Ike Ekonwu. And so Baker, in theory, should have this nice supporting cast around him. They just traded for Laviska Shenault from the Jags. And it looks like they're trying to surround him with talent. With Darnold out, it's now his team, which I think is going to actually really help them because you don't have that tug of war. Now that Darnold's out, it's over with.
Yep.
And, I think everyone and their grandmother is going to be betting the Panthers in week 1 against the Browns. It's almost a pick 'em. And I think there was a quote this week that Baker had told some beat reporter that he's going to F them up. Which definitely sounds like Baker, so I believe the story. It sounds pretty valid.
Yeah, and no, I mean, that's just something that Baker has, and it's always good to have in your quarterbacks. So I'm excited for him to start out there. And, I mean, we didn't even mention Stephon Gilmore on that defense, which, again, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL for the better part of a decade. So I really think this Carolina Panthers team has a chance to maybe upset some people and definitely surprise later on in the year.
Yeah, and my first winner's a little similar to the Panthers. It's a team we've talked a lot of dirt on in our first few episodes. It's the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
But Justin Fields, 14 for 16, 3 touchdowns in the final game of preseason. If I were a Bears fan, that would give me a big sigh of relief. It's just a preseason game, but it's the best game he's played in his career. Looked like he had awesome chemistry with Cole Kmet, who he's going to need to rely on this year. Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet are really that team's only pass-catching weapons. And that's got to be a good feeling for Bears fans heading into the year because I think while we've been critical of the Bears, we haven't put a lot of blame on Justin Fields. And I think we still feel like he's got that high ceiling still.
Yep.
And so even if he can put together 6-7 games this year where he's able to put points up on the board and the Bears can take a step up in their rebuild, they'll feel a lot better come this time next year.
And they also picked up Alex Leatherwood, who was cut by the Raiders as well. So in a slew of cuts the Raiders made. But I think for the Bears, I mean, seeing Justin Fields in that situation is just like you said, a huge sigh of relief because I think what we saw last year and through the start of preseason this year, it's been nothing good from Justin Fields. So I think this is the real kind of first glimpse in Bears' eyes where, maybe we actually have something here with this guy.
Alex Leatherwood, by the way. So the Raiders have now this recent history of cutting loads of first and second round picks, kind of similar to what we were saying with the Patriots. Apparently, Alex Leatherwood, the Raiders asked every single team in the league if they're interested in trading for him, and they got 32 no's.
And they get him
He's
as
the
a free
16th
agent.
pick.
I saw like Cleveland Farrell as well. There were a couple of running backs. Henry Ruggs, obviously, last season.
Oh, my God.
It's just a slew of bad luck with the Raiders here. But I'm going to go to my next loser. And this guy essentially threw himself out of a starting position with the Seattle Seahawks, and that's Drew Lock, who threw three interceptions in his last game. 2 of them, I think, were pretty egregious. And it's just the whole game making questionable throws, throwing to guys who have a guy right on him or throwing into double, triple coverage. He's just not making the right decisions. And very much like Baker Mayfield, he throws a ball with a lot of zip. And we saw that with the 3rd interception, which you can't really blame him for. it kind of hit the receiver square in the chest and bounced up. But for Drew, he's going to be backing up for Geno Smith this year in Seattle. It's Geno Smith's back, but what are your kind of thoughts on Drew Lock and Geno Smith?
Yeah, well, it's like the ugliest QB competition of all time. Like, it's got to be way up there. I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah.
But at this point, Geno's a veteran who's been with that team. I believe this is his third season.
Yep.
I'm not shocked Drew Lock couldn't come in and light it up. I mean, that team has good wideouts,
It does.
but not a good offensive line, to be fair. But no, my only bone to pick about this whole thing is that there's an amazing slate of games week 1 in the NFL, which they do on purpose.
Yeah.
But for Sunday night, they gave us Seahawks-Broncos, which is just...
It's going to be a curb stomping.
No, it'll be cool because Russ playing against the 12th man, but I just have no interest in watching the Seahawks offense at all this year. It's probably the last team on my red zone rankings.
Yeah, you're probably right there. And, I mean, yeah, it all comes, like, the whole Sunday slate comes down to this just middling matchup where I think, like, it's just not going to be close. I mean, you still have DK, you still have Tyler Lockett, but I just don't have the confidence in Geno Smith to advance the ball up against that's a pretty solid Broncos defense you got there too.
So the last week of August means fantasy football drafts for most people. We had ours this past weekend. I don't know what your process is like. Do you do all your research in the hour before? Are you doing mocks all week?
I'm definitely a last minute kind of guy. I mean, I was doing most of my research during the draft actually, because I feel like with drafts, I don't like to go in with a predetermined mindset of, I want this guy, I want this guy. Obviously, I have a couple in the back of my head who, if I see, I might grab them, but I like to adapt the situation. I like to see who's there and I get to know more about who's actually draftable in my spot. But I do know you're a little more prepared than I was.
I'm just bored at work, so I like to do mocks.
Hopefully they don't see this, but I kind of just want to go through our draft quickly, and just see who we like, who maybe are a bit of a long shot in our team, but we want to start off with the guy or multiple people who you think are going to be your carries, your first round picks, your second round guys. Who do you like in your squad?
Yeah, so I took Saquon really early second, and I just think Saquon's going to get a ton of action this year. It's the second year coming off an ACL injury, and the history of that is that the first year back, guys are usually a little timid. They don't fully trust it yet. And that second year back, you really see them lift off. Yep. Saquon, he's going to be the 3-down back. He doesn't have any competition, not only in a running back committee, but the Giants have no receivers. So I think Saquon's going to get a ton of action. He's somebody I targeted who I want to just go 2 running backs early because I thought there are so many receivers in the middle rounds this year. You could get Juju Smith-Schuster, who might be Patrick Mahomes' #1 target in the 6th or 7th round of your draft. Yeah. There are so many guys like that. Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas. In the middle rounds, I thought there were league winners, so I went running backs early.
Yeah, I was on the same kind of boat. I took I had the last pick in the draft, so I went DeAndre Swift, and then right away went with Stephon Diggs right after. Who DeAndre Swift, very similar situation to Saquon. I think they do have another receiver or two that are better, being an upgrade over who the Giants have with Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I think Swift's gonna get a lot of action, a lot of work, and it's just gonna be a workhorse for them. And then same thing with Stephon Diggs. It's Stephon Diggs, and you can't really complain about having a guy like that on your team.
Yeah. He's got a super high floor.
Yeah. So he's going to get a lot of work this year. Josh Allen is just another year older, another year full of experience. So I'm really excited what they can do this year. But I want to move to a guy who may not be the sexiest name on your team, but could be a chance to really take over. If you want, I can go.
Sure.
Yeah, this one I'm still a little bit on the fence about, and it's Sky Moore, the rookie out of the Chiefs. I like the situation because Patrick Mahomes, you can't not. So you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster potentially being the #1 guy there. I think Sky Moore has another opportunity to be the #1 guy for Patrick Mahomes. So The receiver core in Kansas City is still wide open for a guy to really take control of it. So it'll be interesting to see if it's Smith-Schuster or if it's Sky Moore. A bit of a risk there, but I think overall could be worth it.
Yeah, but of course Travis Kelce is going to be the focal point of the passing game.
100%.
Honestly, I would like Sky Moore more if his number wasn't 24.
Yeah, any guy with
It's really off-putting.
Yeah, I mean the numbers that are just super popular across the sports world are just a little bit cringy for me.
So the guy who I think isn't that sexy because he's usually a guy that comes as like the 15th wide receiver when he plays is Courtland Sutton, who I reached for over guys like Mike Williams and some guys who are projected a little higher. Because last year, when we heard that Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp were going to the gym together, getting breakfast every morning, going to church, maybe we rolled our eyes and we didn't think too much of it. And then Cooper Kupp completely blew us away and any expectations we had for what he was capable of. And Courtland Sutton and Russell Wilson have that same vibe this year. And Courtland Sutton's always been productive with pretty bad quarterback play. So he was somebody I thought that could end up being a top 5 wide receiver if he's healthy. Tim Patrick got hurt. It's going to be mainly just him and Judy competing for the ball.
KJ Hamler's still not 100% yet, I don't believe either. So, again, just opens the door for Courtland Sutton. I've always liked him, big body, and just a really reliable guy. You have anyone else for that category?
George Pickens is just the guy who I knew I wanted. I was willing to take like 2 rounds early because I think if I have a good enough team where I can be in the playoff hunt, he's somebody that could actually be maybe even a wide receiver 1 at the end of the season. Now, it's all projection. It doesn't mean anything. Just going off preseason clips and beat reporters. But it sounds like he is going to be the rookie wide receiver this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I drafted Sky Moore the same round you drafted George Pickens, and I drafted before you. I didn't even know Pickens was still there, so I was a little upset with that. And then we have 2 more categories here. We go with the long shots to have a good year. I went with Cameron Brate. He's going to be the number 1 tight end in Tampa Bay. With Robert Gronkowski retiring, it's opened up a lot of options for the receivers to do well. But, I mean, Tom Brady needs a tight end to throw to every now and then. So I think Cameron Brate, even though when he got in the games last year, he had a really low target percentage and just a really low target share across the board. But him being the number 1 guy there with Tom Brady able to work up a little more, trust in him, a little more rapport with the 2 guys, I think Cameron Brate is a long shot, but it's definitely possible that he has a decent year with the Buccaneers.
And I'll go with another rookie wide receiver, Romeo Doubs, who was 4th round pick, wasn't too hyped up coming out of college, won a lot of love from Aaron Rodgers in training camp. Probably still isn't a starter on that team or even one of the first 3 receivers, but with Aaron Rodgers, you're just 1 drop away as a receiver from hitting the bench. And I think Romeo Doubs, if he comes in, contributes, Aaron Rodgers is going to have the final say in who gets action in that offense.
Yeah.
So you just got to hope Sammy Watkins drops some balls, Christian Watson, which seems very possible from what the beat reporters are saying.
And with Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to throw the ball to the guy who produces. He doesn't really care who you are or how long you've been around. He just wants someone who can catch the ball. So I'm with you there. And as we go to our last category here, the choice you regret. I don't think you have to think much about this one, Henry.
No, I took the guy who got shot because I was honestly being distracted by my roommates at the time. And I kind of and the clock was ticking. I went with Brian Robinson. Now, I did get him at like pick 200 or something. And it looks like he's only going to be out like 4 to 6 weeks. And now he's won the affections of the country. And the the Commanders coaching staff has made it clear they don't like Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
He fumbles too much. He plays special teams in practice. Brian Robinson could come back and contribute. But yeah, I definitely was the laughing stock of our fantasy chat for taking Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's only 4 weeks. So I mean, he could come back and have some good production
He
there.
did get shot though, so that could be a generous time. He got shot multiple times in like his legs.
Oh
which
God,
is
it's terrible, but
that's like the last place you'd want to be shot as a running back, obviously.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, we'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then I'll just do mine quickly here. T.J. Hawkinson. It's not because I don't like T.J. Hawkinson. It's that I took him in the 5th round.
Yeah, it's too early.
I mean, George Pickens was still there. A lot of good receivers. Allen Robinson was still there. I reached and I got burned for it because my 3 running back right now is Tony Pollard, who I think is a good option as a RB3, but there were just so many better players available.
Yeah, now I can't blame you because I got a little tight end paranoia too because they start flying off the board.
Yeah.
Quarterback and tight end are the positions where you go, okay, there's still 5 guys on the board I like at the start of this round, and by the time you go up, they're all gone.
Yep.
And I think this year, the last guy who you wanted was Dallas Goedert. He was maybe like the tight end 8 in drafts, who I would have been happy with. But after Goddard, you're looking at Mike Gesicki, or you're basically just playing the waiver wire every week. Guys like Irv Smith or David Njoku, who could actually have a good year.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've seen from the fantasy Twitter nerds, they love David Njoku, they love Jalen Hurts, and they love Trey Lance, who those are the kind of guys. Those are 3 guys who I ended up drafting and had the back of my mind. Those are guys I wanted to get.
And Njoku got a big contract.
Yeah, and with Austin Hooper, it was right. Yeah, the tight end there last year. He's gone now. This opens up the door for Njoku, who never really had a good target share last year, even though he did put up some okay numbers with a low target share. So it's going to open the door for him to have a good year. Yeah.
The problem is that Brissett might be like a top 3 worst QB in the league.
Yeah, but when they get Deshaun back late in the year now, because that's been pushed back to week 11.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that goes, and then
I was listening to the Social Network soundtrack while drafting this year, and it was so good. Like I felt like I was on like Vyvanse without being on Vyvanse. I was so locked in. That soundtrack is so like focused and like you're coding and techie.
What's in it? I don't remember the soundtrack from it at all.
Honestly, it's super like hypnotic trance like movie soundtrack score, but it's intense and it's sort of like sinister. Could not recommend more as the soundtrack to go with fantasy drafts.
All right, yeah, no, I was just listening to Shuffle, just going through all the sad boy music.
I don't want lyrics when I'm drafting.
Fair enough.
I'm reading too many names. I don't want to hear words.
As we kind of get towards the end of our show, we'll finish up with Hard Knocks. But the NFL teams had to send in their 53-man rosters to the league, and as a result, we have cut day. There's some big names that got cut this year. I mean, some guys who have performed well in the past just haven't seemed to be able to cut it this year, but the first guy on the list that I kind of saw was Josh Rosen, who was cut from the Browns, former top 10 pick by the Cardinals, I believe. The same year Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold got drafted as well. So I remember hearing all the hype about him.
Weird that you named those QBs and not Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, well, Baker and Darnold went 1 and 2. So
1 and 3.
1 and 3. So it's in the back of my head. I think those are the best quarterbacks in that draft, right? But I remember all the hype about Josh Rosen. Everyone was saying he was going to be the best quarterback in this draft.
They said he was like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
That was his comp.
Yeah. But flamed out very quickly. And now I believe this is his 3rd team that he's been released by. So
it's over.
You think it's over?
Oh, yeah. It's good. I've seen him play. He's terrible. And he looks tiny. But he's not athletic.
That is fair. And with Kyler Murray in the Cardinals now, that's who you want. So we go to the next guy with Marlon Mack, who's let go by the Texans. Just 2 years removed from a 1,000-yard season, but just a slew of injuries just held him back. Which, where do you think he is?
Well, it didn't help him that Dameon Pierce looked amazing.
Yeah,
it looked like that was maybe gonna be a duo, and then it was as soon as you saw Dameon Pierce in preseason, it was like, no, let's not play Marlon Mack. I'm sure they saved some cap by cutting Mack. And, yeah, maybe he can come in late to a team this year and contribute once he's fully recovered.
Yeah, and I always like to count on these guys who come back from pretty big injuries, and I really hope he kind of finds his way again. And then we go to Josh Gordon, who's let go by the Chiefs. There's not much we can say about Josh Gordon. He's had some issues with the league in the past, but Andy Reid gave him a very nice goodbye and a thank you for everything that he's did. Impressed by him, so I think he's done. Where do you see him?
It's definitely over because I saw something that he had like the worst separation per route in the league last year. Like he just can't get away from defenders anymore.
Yeah, well, that's what he's known for. There's that blazing speed, straight line speed. He's just lost that.
Yeah, and it's over for him.
And then we go to Kenyon Drake, who was let go by the Raiders.
Surprising.
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty good tandem they had back there with Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake.
Kind of like him on the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean him and J.K. Dobbins. I mean that just gives them. The Ravens sometimes run that 2 RB in the backfield lineup, so they get a very good running back to fill out that hole.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to lead off the last two?
Yeah, you have Sony Michel down here, former Patriots first-round pick. Has never really stood out on the eye test. Always has looked super mediocre. Did help the Rams win a Super Bowl last year. Might be generous, but but him getting cut by Miami opens up the door more for Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, who make way more sense for the type of offense I think they're going to run. They got the Niners offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniels, as the head coach. You're probably going to see an offense very similar to what they ran the year they made the Super Bowl with when Mostert was, using his insane speed on outside zone runs and not asking Jimmy/Tua to do too much. That made sense to me.
I really like that backfield too. And it looks like Myles Gaskin's going to be the number 3 guy there now. And then we go to our last one. This one was definitely a little more surprising for me. Malcolm Butler is let go by the Patriots. The second time he's been cut by the Patriots after helping them win a Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. Kind of sad to see him go, but it's a great story that and the Patriots just cut another. I believe it was another first-round pick by them as well.
No, Butler wasn't a first-round pick, but it's the first time they cut him. I was shocked because it was like 2 years removed from the interception in the Super Bowl, and it seemed like he'd become a good corner. But I don't know. The Patriots are just super unpredictable these days. Like Belichick might be senile.
I can see it.
Like he might be over the hill. I want to mention Chris Streveler, who was absolutely unbelievable for the Jets in preseason. I think he had 3 straight double-digit comebacks in the second half. One of Wilson, Flacco, or White would put us in a hole. This guy would come in, run, throw, did it all, and was just like an absolute beast for us.
He's a big body too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him play with
former CFL dude.
I saw him. Yeah, exactly. So I saw him play with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers a while back, and he's just a really reliable guy. He kind of looks like a fridge on sticks out there. Just a big body with little legs, but just a gritty guy. Doesn't mind getting hit. Another guy's kind of sad to see go, but. As we get into our final topic for today, episode 3 of Hard Knocks. Are you good to go straight into it?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of been ruined. I feel like the end of the Hard Knocks season for me, with cut day happening, we got to see exactly who was cut and who's staying on the team, which kind of ruins the last episode a little bit. But we got some good stories with Obina Easy and Khalil Pimpleton. What are your kind of thoughts on those guys and where they end up?
Yeah, I always wonder how much do they know when they're cutting the episodes? Like, are they intentionally ripping our hearts out by developing these guys in the storyline? Like, there was a receiver in this past episode who had 2 touchdowns in the game. Not a second of screen time.
Yeah.
But they show us these guys who are new to America and seem like cuddly dudes, and then we find out they get cut.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just as frustrated as us. But
Yeah.
Dan Campbell was unreal this episode.
Yeah, he had one line at the start of practice that totally contradicted himself, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, Obeneze was let go from the Lions. I'm sure we'll see that in the fourth episode. But he's kind of a guy I wish we had just more about him in general. I mean, I think for a guy who's only been playing football for 7 years and had to move from Africa to come and try and pursue football, I would love to hear more about that, maybe even a movie one day. But that was definitely something I wanted to learn a lot more about. And then we got the joint practice with the Colts. Jamal Williams was an all-timer during that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that one drill he kept doing, he kept trash talking the linebackers. I mean, Dan Campbell had that big talk before going into the joint practice. You know, no brawls. Anyone starts out a brawl, your evaluation's done, and then Jamal Williams is just in the guy's face the whole time, just yipping, cruising for just to start something.
Yeah, and he was losing most of the reps as well.
Yeah.
But that's the most frustrating thing. Like, I've dealt with this in sports too, where the guy you're matched up with, you know you're kicking his butt, but he's just like, yeah, that's what I thought. And you're just like, are you just not aware of this? Maybe it's just a good provoking technique, but Jamal Williams, I'm not as big a fan of him as everyone else. I think he's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
For a backup running back,
yeah, I mean, it's to really start off with that speech in the first episode for me. It's just like, do we really need this?
So what has Jamal Williams ever done? Why does he get to be the leader of this team?
Yeah.
Because he briefly played for the Packers, I think.
But you sort of have a really good point, actually. And I mean, at least from the Hard Knock side, there doesn't really seem to be a true leader on this team, like a player leader. You see Dan Campbell doing a lot of talking. You see Deuce Staley and the defensive coordinator do a lot of talking, but they're not really showing who the leaders are in the room, on the field. I wish we could see a little more of that, and we're kind of just relying on Jamal Williams to be the voice of the locker room here.
Yeah, and I was hoping to come away from Hard Knocks really believing in the Lions because I thought they were a cool story last year with how hard they kept trying after having heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wasn't really sold on the team from what I saw. But Dan Campbell's post-game speech was incredible.
Yeah, the whole winning speech, this is what it feels like.
I blacked out. I know he was talking about like dominoes and...
Yeah, he's definitely a very interesting guy. He has a very interesting vocabulary, but he's just a true football guy.
Did you think the stand-up comedian they brought him was funny?
I think so.
Did you laugh?
I laughed a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Did you?
I may have like nose breathed.
Yeah, that's probably as far as I got. But I mean, comic relief. You need a little bit of that in an episode like that because I mean they show Khalil Pimpleton trying to juggle earlier in the episode. I just skipped through it.
Yeah.
I really didn't need to see that at all. But
I just don't. Why do you have to pay a comedian to tell you that Dan Campbell is reminiscent of Hulk Hogan? Like, I could have came up with that.
That's fair. Yeah, and he picked out a lot of stuff from the TV show, so he just...
Maybe I'm just being a prick.
And then just Khalil Pimpleton, I mean, it's probably the smallest wide receiver in the NFL, you say?
So you have 5'9", 175 now. We've got shorter.
Yeah, but just with the eye tester in that episode.
Also,
he looks,
Pimpleton is like just like a very small sounding last name.
It is, right?
Yeah.
I expect it to be. If you just show me Pimpleton, I expect it to be a short white guy.
Sounds like a short British lady's last name.
Yeah. No, but they're kind of hyping him up to be this guy who was maybe on the fence, but every time we saw him in a drill or of any kind, he was just burning the cornerback no matter what. It just was straight off the line, just gone.
I remember growing up when I was first starting to watch NFL, my grandpa told me it was the best sport because you can just make an athlete out of any body type.
There you go. And he wasn't cut either. And I mean, watching the episode before I saw the cut list, that was a guy who I potentially thought could have been cut.
Yeah, David Blau too. I thought
Yeah.
maybe, and then he had a good game.
They ended up cutting the other quarterback that they showed.
Yeah.
He didn't really get any airtime. Boyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim Boyle actually had some pretty good starts last year too. But
Where was he last year again?
Detroit.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if we're talking Hard Knocks next week. I feel like we're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot on our plate to talk about. What would you give this season, like, out of 5 stars?
Out of 5, I think it was just okay. I wouldn't give it a 4 or 5. I'd probably go 2.5, 3 at the very most.
I would go 3.
Yeah, I mean we did have some good moments, some good back and forth, but there were a lot of cheesy things, a lot of things that I think we could have just skipped if it was on other things. But overall, not terrible.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
3 stars. Yeah. I was probably most amused by just the all players coaching staff as a concept. It was sort of refreshing with how, like, analytics friendly the league's gotten. Yeah. And Dan Campbell just hired, like, a bunch of like-minded people to him.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it pays off this year.
Yeah, and I am going to watch the Lions a little bit more because of Hard Knocks.
And because you have, like, half their roster on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson almost took on Ross St. Brown. At one point, considered Jared Goff. Yeah, it was a rough night for me.
Well, thanks so much to anyone who's tuned in to our episodes during August. We're just getting our feet wet with the show, but I think next week it's really time for liftoff.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait to talk lines for all the week 1 games, upsets, favorite picks, and it's just what it's all about, really. And I just think that's going to be wicked next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to the Bottom Line for hosting us again. Feel free to hop in if I'm forgetting something, Jordan.
22 Front Street.
22 Front Street. And yeah, we'll be back next week, and I think we might discuss going 2 a week for once the NFL season starts, and we'll be reviewing most of the Sunday games. We'll have Bills Rams coming up that week, but we'll be talking Sunday in Red Zone and Scott Hansen and how handsome he is and all that good stuff.
Perfect.
All right, easy.